Greetings. Welcome to Powered by Nyame. I'm your guide and host, Kwesi Kunadu. On this episode, our focus will be why we humans don't like to hear the truth, especially about ourselves. Now, there are a few theories that tries to explain or get at this question. One theory is that, human beings have a sort of cognitive dissonance, meaning that they would rather speak the truth to other people than themselves, and that feels very good to do so, which is the same as how we have the tendency and the propensity to give advice, but not take advice. And so, in similar ways, we have this disconnect between the giving and receiving of what we consider to be the truth. The second theory is that, the human brain is programmed to essentially feel good. And anything, words, images, ideas that it receives, in this case, the truth about ourselves, the brain responds defensively against anything that may shake or seek to harm our self-esteem, our pride, and then in broader sense of ourselves, right? Now, there's a third theory. And the theory is that is simply this, is that we human beings are programmed to hate anything that does not agree with what we believe, what we think, and what we have come to know about ourselves. Now, out of those three theories, you can decide which one is more plausible than the other. But I want to share with you a fourth theory. And this one has nothing to do with the brain, self-esteem, or our attitudes, or this philosophical thing called the truth. I want to suggest to you that there is something within our being, not within the brain, but within our being, that is our composite whole self. Now, those of you who have watched Powered by Nyame for some time now know that we consider the self to be our cognitive self, our spiritual self and being, and our physical human self and being. So all those dimensions are wrapped in this package called a human being, right? So from that perspective, the reason why we human beings react in sometimes very defensive posture or a negative way to what we consider to be the truth, especially about ourselves, I want to distinguish the two. There is truth in the general atmosphere, meaning, for example, you may hear or read about an historical truth, right? And that is a general truth. That has nothing to do with you personally or specifically, but it's truth. Then there is the truth about you, either about your breath, your complexion, your behavior, your attitude, your ideas, you name it. Anything concerning you, your attire, your house, your apartment, your car, anything that has to do with you, right? So when it comes to the truth that has to do with you and with me, I want to suggest to you very strongly that the way we react is based upon two parts of our being not in agreement. In other words, the tension is not because we hate or dislike what we hear in terms of the truth about ourselves, but is something that goes on between our soul, which is located where the physical heart is, but I'm referring to the heart, the physical pumping, organ. The soul, right? The immaterial part that you can't see that's located there in the heart, right? And if you have read anything about the ancient Africans in ancient Kemet or ancient Egypt, you will know or remember that there is a concept called the Ka and the Ba, right? The Ka representing the soul, and of course, the Ba, the personality. And the Ka is represented by the heart, right? In fact, according to ancient Egyptian or Kemetic philosophy and deep thinking, the seat and the soul of the person is represented by the heart. So when I say heart, I don't mean the physical pumping organ that pumps blood throughout our body with oxygen. I mean the soul. So that's one factor, right? And the soul is really who we truly are as spiritual beings in human clothing with the cognitive abilities and other facets to our full human beingness. The other part of us is our mind. And many of you who have followed us as subscribers or simply just general viewers know that we consider the mind to be not simply the brain, because the mind is not the brain, right? The mind is a spirit. That's why it's immaterial, meaning it's not the physical thing. So the physical thing within our cranium, within our skull, is the brain. The mind is the immaterial thing, much like the soul is the immaterial thing represented by the heart. The brain is the physical thing that represents the mind, but they're not the same. They're two different things. One is a representation, one is the real thing. Similar to the globe. The globe is a representation of the earth, but it's not the earth. It's a model of the earth, right? And so, following those examples, you have the mind. And the mind is a spirit. And this spirit is a receptor. It receives things. It doesn't invent or create. Anything out there in the universe, in the cosmos, it can pick up, right? And oftentimes we have thoughts that we didn't invite, that we didn't ask for, and they come to us, right? And so the mind is a spirit, right? That brings us things, right? Ideas, thoughts, distractions, you name it, energy, it brings it. And so when we hear the truth, let's say, for example, somebody says to you, well, man, your breath stinks, right? Or you have an odor coming from your mouth. However you want to frame it or butter it up. It's the same idea and meaning and same target, right? Your breath smells. Immediately, our soul will say, maybe there is an odor possibly from my mouth that I'm not aware of, right? The heart knows who you are because the heart is you, right? Your soul is you. The mind, the spirit, which wanders, which navigates, which meanders, which picks up on things, will pick out attack. Because this person says something that I just don't want to agree to, or even if it's true, I want to hold hold on to my disbelief, right? And when the mind and the soul are at odds, then they're not aligned. They miss each other, right? That is the tension that in that space between the mind and the soul not being in agreement, not being aligned, not being at one. That vacuum, that gap between the two is the reaction, is the defense, is the sometimes visceral response to hearing the truth. And that reaction, of course, can be tempered depending upon how strong or vigilant or resolute our soul is. So if we're weak in our soul, right? In other words, if something has taken us, if we have what we may call a weak self-esteem, which is really a sense of ourself, right? If our soul is weakened or wounded or traumatized, right? Then the spirit of the mind can sometimes overcome it, surpass it, essentially jump into number one in the queue and say, "Rrr," and respond aggressively, defensively, and sometimes, even dangerously to hearing the truth about ourselves. But when the soul is fit, is steady, and is strong enough, it will take first lead in the queue. It will subvert the mind and say, hold on a second. That comment about my breath, whether it's from a friend, a stranger, a parent, a child, is the way in which the soul would simply temper and calm down the mind and say, maybe I do have an odor from my mouth. Let me check it out. And I may go, that does smell. Okay? And to the person, I may say, thanks, appreciate it, good looking. And you'll do something about it, whether it's your brushing or your habits or your, whether you need some mouthwash, whatever it is, dental hygiene, you go and focus on that. I'll give you a concrete example. Following that, I was on the train in New York City taking one of my daughters to school, and we were somewhere going downtown Brooklyn. And she said to me in a crowded train, imagine this is the morning time. For those you're unfamiliar with New York City, rush hour, the train is packed. I mean, there are people on your underarms, right? It's packed. And my daughter's sitting down, I'm standing up. And I'm usually, either she's reading or I'm talking to her or something the like. And so I sit next to her at some point, and she looks at me and says to me, he says, Aja, which is Akan Chi for father. He says, Aja, your breath smells on a crowded train, right? And of course, everyone heard that, at least those close to us, at least 15, 20 people in proximity heard that. And I heard her, and I could tell that she was not joking, or she wasn't trying to clown me. She wasn't trying to embarrass me. She was being her 3, 4-year-old self, right? And I love that about her. Very honest, very truthful, right? And looked at her and I smiled. And I said, okay, right? Now, in that moment, as some people, parents or not, would respond, particularly to a child, right? A young child. They may get angry, either inside or outside. They may get embarrassed, which may turn into anger. And in both cases, the spirit of the mind has what? Surpassed the soul, right? Surpassed the real you, right? That is the human you, right? The compassionate you. And respond to the child in an aggressive way, in a defensive way, in a posture to say, that doesn't smell, what's wrong with you? And so on and so forth. But notice from this story, I did not respond that way. I just smiled because my soul, with her at least, was at peace, right? Was strong enough, right? Had the resolute that it should have. And of course, I'm cognitively aware that we're in a crowded train. But even that moment, it's as if it was just the world with me and her in that train. I was not concerned. I simply blanked everyone out. As I looked at her and I smiled, right? And told her, yes, okay, right? And eventually I did. When I got to the school, drop her off, I did check myself, right? I don't remember if I owed her or not, but she picked up on something, so I probably did. Point I'm making is that whether it's your breath, your bodily odor, or you didn't brush your teeth, or you have a cold in your eyes, or you have a booger from your nose, or you don't drive well, whatever the thing may be that the person or persons may share with you, right? We have the opportunity to respond. And so the next time that you're confronted with hearing the truth about yourself, and for me, myself, I want you to step back from the world, not from the person or persons who are saying it, but from the world. And it's just you and that person. And it's just you that is your spirit, that is the mind, the spirit of the mind, and your soul, your real, true, authentic, compassionate self. And say, is this person trying to harm me by saying that? Is this person trying to help me? I think what it comes down to in life, either somebody has your back or is trying to stab you in the back. Is this person trying to harm me with their remark or trying to help me? It's as simple as that. Once you slice that moment that you freeze between the world, you and them, or you, him and her, you then have the opportunity to what? Freeze that moment and say, if it is harm, you can tell. By the attitude, by the jab, you can feel the jab. Or if the person is earnest and said, hey, you should drive more safely. You can really, it might hurt yourself or hurt others in the car with you. When you look at that and freeze that moment, you say, wait a second. This person looking out for my health and safety and whomever else is in the car with me. They're not trying to harm me. They want my best. And so you come back, unfreeze the moment and say, thank you, I appreciate that. What am I doing exactly I may not be aware of so I can fix that? See that? Just like me on the train with my daughter, right? It was just the world, me and her. Everything else was blanked out. Right? And in that moment, that frozen time, right? You have a chance to slice that moment into, is that remark or comment trying to harm us? And, or is this comment or remark trying to help me? And I know what you're going to say. In the split seconds that you respond to a comment, it's hard to really think. And that is maybe true. Or it may be accurate. But here's what I'm saying. The time it takes you to listen to hear the commentary. And this is a very important point because sometimes we don't even hear the full remark. As soon as we hear something in the remark, it triggers us, right? It triggers the spirit of the mind to respond. So hear the full. If you didn't hear the full, say, excuse me, could you repeat that? To give yourself the chance to freeze the moment, to split it in two, is it to harm me or help me, and then allow the soul to what? Respond. And that's it. Because those three theories I mentioned to you at the beginning of this video, they have their merit. And some of those things, they have their part to play. They don't tell the real or full story of why we human beings respond the way we do, or in the manner we do, to what we consider to be the truth that rubs the way it does against our belief, our self-esteem, our pride, and wherever else got going on about us. Think about it. And if you do, you may see that there is value for a fourth theory, and it might even trump the other theories in terms of the misalignment or tension or gap between the soul and spirit of the mind that we can close by freezing the moment, slicing it in two, and of course hearing the full remark. And of course, unfreeze it and respond, right? And even if the person was trying to harm you, remember this: never let your enemies, because someone trying to harm you is not a friend or an ally, never let your enemies see you cry. Therefore, never let your enemies see you, right, angered and flustered over something intended to harm you. You respond with tact, with skill. Thank you, appreciate it. I'll look into it. Or whatever response you deem appropriate. For Papa Nyame, I've been your guide and host. Please drop your questions, comments, and experiences in the comment section below. Until next time, stay well.